One election 1,300 miles away. More than $100,000 in contracts aimed straight at Miami's skyline. Florida's housing market is standing on a narrow ridge. Prices are holding a line, supply is finally breathing, and yet an unexpected gust politics has begun to push migration patterns with real money behind them. The statewide median for a single-family home sits at $410,000, unmoved from a year earlier. Sales volumes are ticking up, not down. And in Miami, in the shadow of cranes and glass, one developer alone closed over $100,000 in signed contracts from New York buyers, roughly twice the pace of last year. The question isn't whether change is coming, it's whether Florida can turn that surge into stability without tipping into a new bout of volatility. Start with the ground truth. After a fever of bidding wars, statewide data shows Florida catching its breath. Existing single-family home sales jumped 13.6% compared to the same month a year before. Condos and townhouses, long the market's laggard, are increasing too, up 8% year over year. Not a crash, not a freefall. The numbers point to a market that's stabilizing. Price-wise, the single-family median at $410,000 is exactly where it was a year ago, hinting that the correction phase has likely settled into a floor. Condos tell a different story. The statewide median there is $299,000, described as down a bit, and the supply picture confirms it. Single-family inventory equals 5.1 months of supply, while condos and townhouses sit at 9.1 months. In real estate, months of supply is the yardstick that estimates how long it would take to sell the current inventory at the current sales pace. A balanced market tends to hover near 5 to 6 months. At 5.1, single-family homes are tight but balanced. At 9.1, condos are firmly in buyer's market territory. Why are these lines holding? Affordability, in Florida terms, competes on a national map where the numbers have become brutal. In New York City, the median sale price hit $875,000 in September 2025, up 7.9% year over year and more than double the national average. A typical U.S. household would need to earn about $118,530 annually to afford a median-priced home nationwide, while the median household income sits near $77,700. When the gap between $118,530 and $77,700 becomes the normal math for buying a house, migration is not just a lifestyle choice, it's a budget mandate. This is the context that makes Florida's $410,000 statewide single-family median consequential. It's not cheap, but it's a different equation when New York's figure is $875,000. Now add the spark. New York City elected Zohran Mamdani. He is 34 years old, became the city's first Muslim and first South Asian mayor, and he defeated former Governor Andrew Cuomo. His platform promises a rent freeze, free childcare, government-run grocery stores, and free buses paid for by taxing corporations and the 1%. During that cycle, a Miami developer said his firm closed more than $100,000 in signed contracts from New York buyers, about twice last year's volume. The firm didn't add a handful of new names. It multiplied its checkbook from one state. How does a vote in Manhattan touch a closing table on Brickell Avenue? The distance is literal 1,300 miles, and the mechanism is sentiment backed by a willingness to move capital. A survey found that 9% of New Yorkers said they would definitely leave the city if Mamdani won. With a population of 8.5 million, that calculates to roughly 765,000 potential departures. Even if a fraction convert to closings, that pool is large enough to move Miami's luxury pipeline and keep pressure on inventory in Tampa, Orlando, and Jacksonville. Another developer went further, saying he even contributed to the winning candidate's campaign, not out of political alignment, but because he believed the policies would depress values and create buying opportunities later at lower prices. When developers say out loud they plan to pick up all the pieces at a very low price point, it's more than a quote. It's a playbook preview, 5 years in the making. Politics is not the only thing bending the curve. 1 in 4 Americans is now considering politics when deciding where to live. That's a broad sentiment, but its practical accomplices in Florida are tangible. lower taxes, relative affordability against coastal peer states like California and Massachusetts, and lifestyle magnets that include beaches, jobs, and sunshine. In Central Florida, agents talk about how every October brings a seasonal surge of snowbirds, and they note the condo market is starting to rebound. It's not anecdote, it's the calendar that dictates traffic. Seasonal migration wraps around school schedules, the holidays, and the cold. That's the human tempo underneath the spreadsheets. Rates are the other lever, and in Florida, the hinge is loud. The market is sensitive to affordability built on financing costs. When rates dipped, buyers came off the sidelines and new pending sales rose for 2 consecutive months. When they rise, activity cools. The phrase lock-in effect explains why supply isn't flooding. Many current homeowners hold sub-3% mortgages and have little desire to sell only to replace that with a loan at roughly double the rate. They stay put. That decision affects the 5.1 months of supply number in single-family homes. It restricts how many fresh listings can hit the market. It also holds the statewide median near $410,000, even as marginal buyers wait for financing to ease. Condos tell a more complicated narrative. A 9.1-month supply is a numerical signal, but the texture is insurance and HOA math. After the Surfside tragedy, stricter safety and maintenance requirements raised costs for associations. With those requirements came higher reserves and, in many cases, special assessments. A low purchase price can be erased quickly by a $30,000 assessment for a new roof. Insurance premiums became another unpredictable line item. Together, those inputs keep the condo median softer at $299,000 and tilt negotiating power toward buyers. Cash buyers less exposed to financing volatility, less constrained by lender requirements in buildings with reserve gaps, find more leverage. That is why the condo market is called a tale of opportunity and caution. The opportunity is selection and pricing. The caution is the ongoing cost structure. Zoom back to the streets. Miami's developer momentum from New York is not theory when $100,000 in signed contracts changes which towers get greenlit. In Orlando and across Central Florida, agents are hearing the politics question more often. About 1 in 4 Americans brings it into the conversation, and when taxes and affordability are on the table, Florida shows up as the comparative edge. Buyers from California, Illinois, New York, and Massachusetts are weighing numbers, state taxes, insurance line items, square footage per dollar, and they're balancing that against proximity to theme parks, new employers, and coastal amenities. The result is a steady inflow that complements and sometimes overwhelms local momentum. Where are the pressures likely to show first? Look at months on market, price cuts, and absorption speed. When single-family supply sits at 5.1 months, you're near that 5 to 6 sweet spot that professionals call balanced. In that band, well-priced homes still move, but at a sane clip. Overpriced listings sit and gather days. A statewide median at $410,000, identical to the prior year's figure, is a reminder that the auction-style walk-up of 2021 is over. It also says pricing power has not disappeared. The 13.6% year-over-year jump in single-family sales confirms buyers are still transacting, even with the lock-in effect limiting available inventory. On the condo side, a 9.1-month supply implies patience for buyers and pressure for sellers. You can negotiate, you can inspect, you can ask about reserves, upcoming repairs, and whether there's a $30,000 roof assessment looming. And because condo and townhouse sales rose 8% year over year, the market is not frozen. It is actively repricing risk. These micro frictions link to macro gaps. The United States is short roughly 4.7 million homes. That shortage supports prices even when financing costs rise. Federal Reserve leadership has stated the simple problem: not enough housing. In that kind of environment, migration flows matter more. If 9% of a city of 8.5 million says it is ready to move, even if that overstates the final tally, a few 100,000 potential movers choose destinations where their income clears the affordability threshold. If a typical household needs $118,530 to afford the national median, while the median income sits near $77,700, any state that offers the right mix of price, jobs, and taxes becomes magnetic. Florida is one of those magnets. None of this erases the risks unique to Florida. Insurance is the recurring choke point. Condo associations have to balance safety mandates with monthly fees residents can pay. Special assessments, $30,000 is the emblematic figure, can turn a good deal into a bad one after the closing. Coastal communities with older housing stock face bigger headwinds from property insurance costs. That's why you see the condo median price lag, the single-family median and supply, sitting heavy at 9.1 months. It's also why due diligence is non-negotiable. Buyers need to read reserve studies, scan for planned assessments, and understand how premiums reset. It's equally important not to flatten Florida into one market. Tampa, Orlando, and South Florida are different stories bound by one state. Major metros with strong job growth often prove resilient. In those places, prices tend to stay firm and can show modest appreciation even when statewide numbers are flat. Coastal pockets where insurance costs spike can get stuck, even when buyers are willing. Second home and vacation markets are more sensitive to high interest rates. Their pendulum swings farther because discretionary demand is the first to pause when a mortgage quote comes in high. So what's actually happening on the ground right now? Start with behavior. Buyers are watching rates, and they are ready to move fast when financing gets a little cheaper. That's why new pending sales rising 2 months in a row acted like a flare on the horizon, an early signal of closed sales momentum to come. Sellers are learning a different lesson. Pricing right on day one matters again. Overpricing leads to stale days on market and eventual cuts. But competitively priced homes still sell without languishing. In single-family segments across Florida, a 5.1-month supply lines up with that story. Patience is back, but pressure hasn't vanished. On the condo side, the tactic is different. Ask for documents. Ask about reserves. Ask about planned repairs. When a $299,000 median price is down a bit, it tempts bargain hunting. But the math is the monthly payment plus assessments and insurance, not the purchase price alone. In buildings where reserve studies are sound and there are no expensive surprises, buyers can negotiate and still end up with an attractive total cost. In buildings with looming expenses, buyers need to discount accordingly or be prepared to fund that $30,000 roof in the first year. The migration narrative isn't just an abstract trend, it shows up in contracts. In Miami, more than $100,000 in signed deals from New York buyers came through around the Mamdani election. That's about twice the prior pace. The number is big on its face, but it also broadcasts confidence in Florida's long-term value proposition. If developers and high-net-worth buyers from a market where $875,000 is the median think Miami's future will stay bright, you should pay attention. Equally, the 9% of New Yorkers, roughly 765,000 people, who told pollsters they would definitely leave, highlight the emotional force behind the financial logic. Not all of them will move, but enough could to fill entire neighborhoods from Boca to Brickell to Baldwin Park. Central Florida provides another window. Agents say affordability and lower taxes are magnets for families leaving California, Illinois, New York, and Massachusetts. They point to schools and community as decisive, not just price. The job market in Orlando has diversified beyond hospitality. Proximity to theme parks is still a draw, but so is the broader metro's growth arc. Every October, the snowbird surge begins, and that adds demand to condo corridors along the coasts and in-town spots with easy lock-and-leave routines. When agents say the condo market is starting to rebound, they're reading active showings and accepted offers against the still heavy 9.1 months of supply. Rising 8% in year-over-year condo and townhouse sales suggests the buyers are now willing to sift through complexity to find value. Rates are the drumbeat. The lock-in effect keeps would-be sellers frozen at sub-3% mortgage rates, and many balk at doubling their interest rate to move. That dynamic holds supply down, especially on the single-family side. It also means small dips in rates can release significant pent-up demand. We saw it when pending sales rose for 2 consecutive months. Families built purchase plans and then pounced when the math improved. That's the pattern to watch. Each rate move unlocks, or locks out, a meaningful number of buyers at the margin. The 13.6% jump in single-family sales crystallizes that the demand is there. The financing is the gatekeeper. If you want a snapshot of confidence versus caution, split the market into two pictures taken on the same day. Image 1. A single-family house in Tampa priced near the statewide median of $410,000. With 5.1 months of supply, the odds favor a sale if it's priced right and presented well-neutral paint, clean inspection, and a seller ready to negotiate within a reasonable band. Image 2. A two-bedroom condo in Miami or Fort Lauderdale asking near $299,000. The supply sits at 9.1 months. A buyer can take time, demand documents, and run the math on reserves. If a $30,000 assessment is scheduled, that figure needs to live in the offer price or in the buyer's cash cushion. In Picture 1, the pace resembles a steady march. In Picture 2, it's a careful negotiation. This is also the moment to understand the difference between statewide medians and neighborhood realities. Jacksonville's suburban belts will not move in lockstep with Miami Beach. The Villages does not mirror Orlando's tech corridors. Tampa's growth has its own engine, yet the spine connecting them all is clear. Migration flows, affordability pressure, and the insurance and HOA reality gripping condos. When a market sits near 5 to 6 months of supply, as single-family does at 511, balance is possible. When the condo stack sits at 9.1 months, the buyer's hand is heavier. For sellers, the strategy is straightforward. Price accurately from day one. The days of sell any price are over, and overpricing guarantees stagnation. Watch the comps. Use the $410,000 statewide median as context but price to your block. If you're selling a condo, carry the documentation to every showing. Reserve studies, insurance details, and the status of any assessments. Transparency shortens negotiation and keeps deals from falling apart at inspection. For buyers, preparation is leverage. If you're shopping single-family and you see a home that fits your budget near $410,000, move quickly when rates improve because competition accelerates when financing opens. If you're buying a condo near $299,000, organize your due diligence in advance and treat the $30,000 assessment as a very real possibility unless documents prove otherwise. This entire dynamic sits against a national backdrop that pushes in one direction: underbuilding. A shortage of roughly 4.7 million homes keeps prices buoyant even when affordability pinches. It also means Florida's relative affordability, especially when compared to a place where the median is $875,000, remains a strong draw. The state's lack of a personal income tax stacks one more chip on its side of the table. Combine those structural advantages with a lifestyle pitch sunshine, coastlines, new employers, and you understand why developers in Miami feel bold enough to tout $100,000 surges in signed contracts tied to out-of-state buyers. What happens next? The clearest base case for Florida is a steadying year. Statewide median prices flatten rather than spike, with localized outliers. Signals suggest many markets could log slight single-digit moves, 1 to 3% modest gains in some metros with strong job growth, small 1 to 2% dips in spots where insurance and HOA costs weigh heavier. Single-family homes with 5.1 months of supply likely hold their balance unless a significant rate move swings demand. Condos with 9.1 months available remain a buyer's market until cost structures stabilize. Sales volumes can remain healthy if financing opens. We have a 13.6% year-over-year gain in single-family sales and an 8% lift in condos and townhouses to prove that demand is not the issue. Two watch items should sit on your dashboard. First, the path of mortgage rates. Small dips already triggered 2 consecutive months of rising pending sales. That sensitivity means even modest changes will shift who qualifies, how quickly homes go under contract, and how many sellers feel confident listing. It also interacts with the lock-in effect. Sub-3% homeowners are not selling unless the replacement rate feels palatable. Second, the condo cost stack. Insurance premiums, reserve requirements, and assessments. The $30,000 roof that turns a deal will determine whether 9.1 months of supply drains down or stays elevated. A period of stability in those line items could turn today's cautious opportunity into tomorrow's competitive scrum. The third narrative, politics-driven migration, sits just beneath those two. If even a slice of the 9% of New Yorkers, roughly 765,000 people, who said they would definitely leave convert that intent into action, Florida will feel it first in Miami and then across the I-4 corridor. One developer's $100,000 figure offers an early reading. In a city where $875,000 is the median sale price, buyers forced to do the math on $118,530 versus $77,700 incomes will look south. Florida, with a $410,000 single-family median and relative tax advantages, will continue to be in the path of that capital. Here's the story distilled. Florida's single-family market sits near the balance point at 5.1 months of supply, with a statewide median at $410,000 that has held steady year over year. Sales are up 13.6% for existing single-family homes and 8% for condos and townhouses, demonstrating resilient demand. Condos at 9.1 months of supply and a $299,000 median that's down a bit remain an arena where buyers can take their time but must do their homework. Insurance, reserves, and the possibility of a $30,000 assessment are not details. They are the deal. Against that stability, a political shock from a city of 8.5 million sent more than $100,000 of purchase intent into Florida, with 9% of residents saying they're ready to leave, or roughly 765,000 people. In a nation short roughly 4.7 million homes, those choices matter. Your move depends on your lane. If you're buying, sharpen your financing plan and be rate aware. When the door opens, walk through it. If you're shopping condos, press for documents and protect against hidden costs. A slightly lower sticker price isn't a bargain if a $30,000 bill waits behind it. If you're selling, anchor to today's numbers, not yesterday's heat. Properly priced listings still move in a 5.1-month world. If you're building, watch where out-of-state contracts are clustering. $100,000 from one northern pipeline hints at where the cranes will swing next. The outlook is firm, but not flashy. Stability at $410K statewide in single-family prices, with modest single-digit moves in either direction by submarket. A buyer's market in condos at 9.1 months of supply, tilting toward renewed strength if insurance and HOA volatility calm. Steady interest from out-of-state buyers, amplified by political choices far from Florida's coasts. The base case is a market that breathes but doesn't break. Watch rates, watch insurance and HOA costs. Those two dials will set the tempo for Florida's next 12 months, while $100K contracts and $765,000 intentions wait to see which way the wind blows. If you want more clear-eyed, number-driven reads like this as the next data points drop, subscribe to stay ahead of Florida's next move.